And welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show, a podcast brought to you by the Livingston Parish News. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you guys joining us today. We are here with the beautiful Miss Melanie Murr, a broker here in Livingston Parish, also serving the Baton Rouge and New Orleans areas. Good morning, ma'am. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. And for the listeners out there, go ahead and introduce yourself so they can put a voice to a name.
Okay, my name's Melanie Murr. I'm a broker for a company called Property Sprocket. We're a tech-enabled real estate brokerage. We have offices here in Denham Springs, also in Baton Rouge and New Orleans.
So, wide service area, and we'll talk about that in a second, but want to go ahead and lead off with a couple of things about the Livingston Parish real estate market. Been growing last couple of years, but last year, despite, I think, what people thought at the beginning of the year, especially when COVID started, and we're going to talk about that in a second, boomed, just absolute boom. And over 2,400 homes sold, over $240,000 average home price. That's sort of a national trend, isn't it?
Right, yes. We've seen that across the nation, of course, sort of been driven by COVID. And when COVID first hit, myself and other people in the real estate industry was like, oh gosh, I don't know what's going to happen. This could be bad. But it actually ended up being very good in terms of the real estate market. Houses all over the country have seen the same sort of unprecedented demand as we've seen here in Livingston Parish.
And, it has been interesting across the country because it is I guess you call it a seller's market.
Right.
Houses are flying off. Here we're a little more stable, and I know you want to talk about that as well. But there's all these interesting pictures from around the country of people kind of making jokes about, you put your house on the market and, suddenly 500 people want to see it. There's a fire next door and in the distance sirens, right? I mean, it's just things are flying off the shelves, so to speak. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. But first we want to talk about, in terms of COVID. How has that really affected the housing market? Because in a way, it's actually been a positive thing.
Right. So the big thing that drives this, of course, is the work from home trend. So suddenly, when you don't have to commute to an office every day, you have a whole lot more flexibility in where you can live, right? So people have been taking advantage of the fact that now they can work remotely to live in the places they actually really want to live. Another big trend with that is less populated areas, people moving out of really urban, sort of densely packed, because of course, COVID made us where we don't really want to be densely packed with people as much anymore. So that was a big part of the trend. Another thing that's really contributed to it is the fact that we stay home a lot more. So you kind of want to put some time and energy into making your house the best that it can be. And, you have either the choice of sort of renovating or just like, you know what, this is too small. It's going to cost more money to fix everything up. Let's just go buy another house. So that is the big thing that is driving those two factors, the work from home and just that we're spending more time at home. So that space kind of becomes more important to be like what we really want it to be.
Right. Because, housing had really become, with people supposedly living such busy lives, had become more of the place where you kind of come home, you spend some time with your family or your spouse or whatever, and you go to bed and you get up and you leave it again the next day. A lot of people had been downsizing. Is that still the case, or is downsizing still more of kind of an older demographic?
It goes either way, kind of just depending on, people's individual needs. But there are a lot of demand for things like the home office with the built-ins. Like it's a lot of the new construction houses around here, that's like something they really play up. They make the real nice double desk that's long with the built-in storage and stuff like that. And then also people are looking for exercise type rooms. I've seen listings in Baton Rouge with the language Peloton room,
Right.
which is, because Peloton was another industry that really benefited from COVID. They sold more of those bikes than they ever have before because it's a convenient workout, but it kind of keeps you connected through the online classes. So those types of rooms that, you never heard of before COVID are actually a selling point now.
Right. And you know, it's I'm trying to get it out here, and I'm sorry, guys. It's just interesting how so many people have sort of changed what they're looking for. And in a way that, do you expect this? There it is. There's the question coming out. Do you maybe expect this? Because we're going to talk a little bit about future trends and what you think. But do you expect that to change the building market? So, people have, and you can talk about this in a second. With the high demand, builders have become more in demand because homes that are listed that are already on the market kind of fly off the market and sometimes might cost a little bit more than they're really worth. So, do you expect builders to be more in demand, and do you expect home plans that include home offices or a spare bedroom that can also be an exercise room?
Yes, definitely. A big thing that's happening is people put their house on the market because it's a seller's market and they know, hey, I'm going to get more money than I've probably ever be able to get, maybe again. And they go to the other side of the market being a buyer and they're like, oh gosh, what I just sort of took advantage of is now going to work against me. So a lot of these people they just decide, hey, I'm going to just build a house, or they go to a new subdivision where they have builder packages that they can pick from. So that is really starting to boom as well. And you are already seeing new construction houses with the little bonus rooms, the bonus office with the built-in, like I was talking about earlier. So I definitely think that trend will continue because there's such high demand for existing homes. That's kind of the plan B, or, you might have just wanted to build a home anyway. But I definitely think that will continue.
From a financial standpoint, there was also a benefit, and the Fed sort of made this decision, but interest rates just plummeted. And from your perspective, that open the door for a lot of people who might either otherwise have not thought they could move up or even move into the home market. What did you see there?
Yeah, low interest rates definitely drive that buyer demand because, in theory, you get more for your money, right? Some interest rates have, dipped below 3, just really low, things that you don't normally see or haven't seen. So that's going to continue to drive demand. The Fed has pretty much said, hey, to keep the economy humming, we're kind of going to keep things really low. So I think that will continue to be a factor because those few percentage points don't seem like a big deal. But even in a mortgage for a house that's like $200,000, it definitely makes a difference in terms of the affordability, your comfort with the monthly note. So yeah, I definitely think that will continue to be a thing.
Which, and you already kind of covered, do you think that's going to go forward? And so you're saying yes.
Definitely.
Okay. Interesting. Very interesting. So, in terms of those interest rates staying low, you say yes. You also think that people are still going to be focused on, staying at home, improving their home situation. So, do you believe that home sales will continue to stay hot going into 2021?
Yes, I totally believe that. One of the trends you're starting to see now is sort of a second wave of demand. First of all, it's the spring, and this is kind of when everybody likes to move and sell their house, those kind of things anyway. But there's also more certainty. So, two things. One thing is people are like, okay, we might actually get through this. COVID sort of has an expiration date at this point with vaccines and things like that. So, there's a certainty that comes from that that's like, okay, I'm not going to lose my job. I'm not going to have this big financial impact. Things are going to kind of even out. So that makes you a little more willing to, make the jump and buy another house. Another thing driving that is employers are kind of making decisions about whether or not the work from home thing is going to be permanent. So maybe you didn't want to move yet because you're like, they're saying I can work from home now. But next year, is that still going to be the case? And so some of these larger employers have been like, yeah, this is permanent, or it's going to be a hybrid. You got to come into the office like once a month or whatever. So once you get that green light from your employer, then you're a little bit more flexible to, go out and go ahead and move to where you want to live.
So it might be fair to say that last year was sort of the new home buyers and people who were like, oh, I can either upgrade or get in a home. This year, it's the kind of people that are maybe a little more cautious with their money, but who are like, okay, it's time for us to either get into the housing market or upgrade, because like you said, it might be a lot of people in apartments who are like, considering what happened, I just don't want to be on top of a bunch of people anymore.
Right. And surveys have shown that, and this isn't surprising. I think the one I saw yesterday was about 68% of employees want to continue to have the work from home option. So I definitely think that will continue to be a factor in, residential mortgage. Also, the second home market has seen a boom as well because, when you have that flexibility, you can get a second home and actually spend time there and enjoy it, work remotely, and have the bonus of, making some income possibly with things like Airbnb, VRBO.
So yeah, I was gonna clarify that second home. You mean maybe somewhere at the beach or somewhere or camp somewhere else,
Right. South Louisiana, the camp is a big thing.
right?
And also the beach properties, Gulf Shores, Destin, Orange Beach, Pensacola. Um, those markets are seeing unprecedented demand. Airbnb was another one of those things that kind of got a bump from COVID because if you have to go somewhere, do you want to stay in an Airbnb that is just you and, cleaned and, your stuff? Or do you want to stay in a hotel where there's constantly people in and out? You're going to have to get on an elevator with a bunch of people. So Airbnb also saw a huge uptick in their business.
So just a lot of people trying to either further their reach in the real estate market or get involved altogether. Uh, it's interesting what you brought up. You're talking about folks working from home and the fact that some businesses are offering that, at least at a little more open pace. Tell us from a commercial standpoint what you've seen from commercial real estate owners. For in some cases, maybe they had to pivot and sort of repurpose the building. In other cases, maybe they're facing a little bit of hardship here.
Okay, yeah, commercial real estate, I think more than just about any industry outside of maybe live events, um, sort of had a panic moment when it became clear how COVID was going to affect things. And they have taken a pretty big hit, but it's not as bad as it could have been. And I think some of the factors that contribute to that is communities have been, pretty resilient and sort of, circled the wagons around their small businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And then some small businesses have just had the determination, like, I'm going to do whatever I can to keep this space and kind of see this through. So that has helped keep people in those spaces. And a lot of those businesses have been able to renegotiate their leases on the commercial property because, the property owners are like, well, I'd rather get something than just sort of have it empty.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of mitigated some of the damage as well. And then, as you mentioned, you are starting to see a lot of repurposing, huge, even in this area, the co-working idea, because that gives people sort of a base to go to if they're not necessarily going to go every single day. And for companies, it gives them access to things like a conference room or, meeting space when they need to meet with clients or have team meetings, but they're not having to carry the expense of having, 20 offices for each person. And so that's a big thing. You also see in some bigger areas repurposing into residential.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the trend is kind of to move away from densely packed housing, some people still want to live in those kind of areas. So that's another thing that has happened with some of that space is to repurpose it for living space.
Which is interesting, because obviously it started life as commercial, but now we're talking about working from home and they're repurposing it residential, and in that kind of a
Right.
circle of life kind of thing.
Right.
So we want to ask you tell us a little bit about Property Sprocket. What's your 2-minute elevator speech? And then we'll wrap up with how people can find you.
Okay, Property Sprocket is a local brokerage. We have local knowledge of the Livingston Parish market and sort of the market between Baton Rouge and New Orleans. We call it like the 10-12 corridor. We try to come up with a name for the Baton Rouge, New Orleans super region. We hadn't came up with one yet.
Everybody's got something different to call
right,
it.
10-12. I've seen I-55.
Right.
Things like that. So we have that local focus, but we also keep on top of all the national trends so we can bring the best service to our clients. We are what's called a tech-enabled brokerage, which is designed to sort of save you time and just make it more convenient. We do everything paperless, e-signatures, disclosures, all that stuff, unless you don't want to do it that way. We will do it the old way as well. And one of our taglines is we combine the best of new technology, new school, with old school customer service. And that's really what we're about.
Well, and it sounds like an interesting mix and innovative in the real estate market. Now, tell us, how can they find you? What kind of social media do you have, website, that kind of thing?
We are on social media at propertysprocket.com. And, just a little origin story. Spacely Space Sprockets from Jetsons was part of that inspiration. Some of y'all will remember that. And it's just the word property and sprocket. It's what we are on all social media. And also our website is propertysprocket.com.
Well, thank you, ma'am. We appreciate your time today. It's been fun to talk to you. Thanks for the insights into the real estate market. So again, if you could kind of give yourself an outro, reintroduce yourself just so people can remember your voice when they listen to it.
Okay, this is Melanie Murr, and I am a broker in South Louisiana for the company Property Sprocket.
Serving the Baton Rouge and New Orleans area. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the Livingston Parish News. Appreciate you guys joining us for the Livingston Parish News weekly show. Please remember, we are on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We are once a week in print on Thursdays at $7 a month to get that in your mailbox. We're also online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. You can find this podcast on any podcast platform. Thanks to Anchor FM for distributing it for us. And remember, if you'd like to do a podcast with me, you can email me, McHugh, that's MCHUGH, at LPN1898.com. I want to thank my lovely guest for joining us again today. Thank you, ma'am. Hope you have a great rest of the morning. Hope you guys have a great day. We appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you next time.